those were the
Wow.
things that I kind of intuitively as a human, when my sacred nature or my audacious spirit knew instinctively that it needed to survive first before it could come out to play a little bit
Right.
later in life.
Right.
And so as we pick up, I call them seashells or beliefs. I love to pick up seashells when I'm on the beach. And so the
Yeah.
first idea or belief that I picked up that wasn't even mine, I come to find out later, was I am unlovable. The second was I am unworthy. The third one was I am not enough.
Salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to ignite inspiration and empower our audience to live their best audacious lives ever. Your presence here is truly appreciated, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you who's taken time out of your day to join us on this transformative journey of personal growth. Now, much like how energy healing aids in restoring equilibrium within ourselves, our path to healing from childhood trauma involves converting negative energy into positive vibrations. Our life experiences influence our energy, and by acknowledging and addressing these past wounds, we can heal and move forward with newfound strength and resilience. Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, a distinguished expert in trauma therapy, nursing, and energy healing, is deeply committed to assisting individuals in overcoming past traumas and uncovering their inner strength. Kelly's unique approach integrates science and spirituality to support her clients in achieving holistic well-being. Now, in this episode, Kelly imparts invaluable wisdom on navigating the healing process from childhood trauma, highlighting the significance of self-love, resilience, and reconnecting with our inner wisdom to unlock our talent and potential. It's a powerful conversation that you certainly are going to appreciate. So without any further ado, here's Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff. Enjoy. Dr. Kelly, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you making the time to be here. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Audley. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, this is great. I think I was just saying a moment ago, the opportunity to be able to sort of connect and share and have some conversations like this I get a charge out of it. It's exciting for me, and it also helps me sort of fulfill my own mission of encouraging that that audacious spirit that we all have inside all of us to be able to live that best audacious life ever. And so, really happy to have you here. One of the things that happens to many of us is that we encounter, whether on our pathway, on our pathway to this greatness, is we encounter there's challenges, there's obstacles, and the ability for us to demonstrate resilience is so key and so important. And one of the things that oftentimes it comes up for many people is this trauma from their past or even from their childhood. And so I certainly want to get into dialogue about that, because that certainly is a lane that you know very much about. You've written a book about, which we'll talk about as well. But maybe as a starting point, you can sort of introduce yourself to our listeners and give them an idea of what's got you up into this point that you're at now.
Sure. Thanks so much. So my journey began. My parents and I and three siblings, we had pre-planned quite an adventurous time here on Earth. I talk about it as parachuting into our storyline, our timeline, and our world line. Now, at the beginning, I didn't understand when I was little kind of where I was and what was going on. It felt like I was in this, what I call the shark tank of energy, which was this very heavy energy. So from a little girl's time, I was the oldest of four, and I had three things that came into my kind of imprinted immediately for me, which was I needed to keep my mother healthy, my father happy, and my siblings safe. Those were the
Wow.
things that I kind of intuitively as a human, when my sacred nature or my audacious spirit knew instinctively that it needed to survive first before it could come out to play a little bit
Right.
later in life.
Right.
And so as we pick up, I call them seashells or beliefs. I love to pick up seashells when I'm on the beach. And so the
Yeah.
first idea or belief that I picked up that wasn't even mine, I come to find out later, was I am unlovable. The second was I am unworthy. The third one was I am not enough. Now, little did I know I was an empath and an energy healer. And so what I was really picking up on were those echoes of my parents, their parents, their parents, their parents. Now, when I looked at my sacred contract much later, I did look to make sure I signed it. I had signed up for, and so had my family, to heal ancestral trauma
Right.
and unprocessed karma from the beginning. So it wasn't as if we were just trying to restore our sacred nature in this lifetime with all of the heavy energies we were exploring together, but we said we're just going to do this once and for all here in this particular expression of life. And what I discovered much later through my journey, which we can talk about, is that that is actually what humanity is doing. In other words, many of us in childhood picked up these seashells that were not our own. And so these echoes just kept echoing. And so I'm a mother and grandmother now. And I say this lovingly to myself, that I really explored the energy of stubbornness. In other words,
Yeah.
stubbornness for me, I just did not pick up the call that my guidance was giving me throughout my life.
Okay.
And at age 10, I did honor an invitation to go to an overnight. And this was such a big deal for me because, as someone who was kind of parentified in her childhood,
Hmm.
to go to an overnight was a big
Big
deal,
deal.
to
Yeah.
kind of get
Yeah.
away from
Yep.
what was going on.
Yep.
But what I didn't listen to was that still small voice that said, "You're just not going to want to do that." And I'm like, "Oh, but I really do." And so I went down the street. And it was that night when I was age 10 that I was caught now in the energy, exploring the energy of trafficking. And
Yeah.
so little did I know from ages 10, 11, and 12 that I would be exploring this energy as a human being, as a human child, but also as a sacred being.
Okay.
And that energy is very powerful energy that I did explore. I meant to explore it in this expression of life. And for those who have experienced trauma similar to this kind of energy, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, or sexual trauma,
Hmm.
what I'd like to share with you is a more expanded awareness around the energy of those those thoughts that we think, the words that we speak about,
Right.
those
Right.
experiences, the beliefs that we hold. And so I just like to say to those who are listening today that I bring a very different and empowering and expanded perspective around these types of traumas, so that you can know in your heart that you are at your core an audacious explorer.
Mhm.
And we are here to remember and awaken to the truth of who we are through these very heavy experiences that we said we'd come in and help heal.
Right.
So we are beautiful, brilliant, and brave souls, very ambitious, and our families are, to me, what I see, having worked with so many children and teens and families, is when I look at families, what do I see? I see the stars shining at me. In other words, I only see the families that are fully restored. And I'm
Right.
just helping them dance their way into the energy of the remembrance of that.
Well, first off, beautiful imagery. I've got to say, the stars and the dancing, and it's wonderful in the imagery, and it really allows you to dream a bit of what it can be when you
Mhm.
have that kind of imagery. I want to go back, if you don't mind, when you sort of talked about picking up the seashells that weren't yours, and I think that last piece of it, that were not yours, is a significant one, because there are things that we carry. There's things that we hold on to. You touched on the beliefs, our ideology. Oftentimes, especially from the perspective of a child, comes from another place. I wonder if you can sort of talk about the point of realization, because that can be earth shaking, right? Groundbreaking in a lot of ways when you come to the point that the thing that you believe, the way you act, the emotions that you feel were never your own.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I was someone who identified with being, I can't remember exactly the moment that I took on the idea that everyone else's well-being was more important than my own. It came very, very early in life. And
Mhm.
so I was living what I call upside down and upside in. So what that means is that upside down, when we think about our energy center and our crown chakra is when we're standing on the ground and the crown chakra is here,
Okay.
I was actually upside down. So if you think about upside down,
Right.
my root chakra was what was on deck most of the time with the
Yes.
energy of survival and safety and all of that. And
Mm.
so outside in means I was looking to see who needed what and who did I need to be for someone in order for them to be happy. And so that's what I mean by upside down and outside in. So
Yeah.
the family system is the first opportunity for us to, when we're little, see we're sponges, our brain. So what I noticed are these 5 E's, which is entrancement. So think about the way the words come and the spelling. And so we're entranced, we're in a hypnotizing state. Then we become enmeshed in the emotional sea. So now we're entranced, we're enmeshed, and then we get entangled into the energy dynamics, right?
Mhm.
So the dynamic between my father and I, so he was discovering and exploring the energy of narcissism, of alcoholism,
Right.
of
Right.
violence, right? So he was exploring these energies, and I was exploring the energies of empaths. So that dynamic was being explored. My mother's energy was exploring neglect and mental illness and physical illness. And so now we're entangled in the energy.
Yes.
Well, from the entranced, the enmeshed, the entangled, now we are entrapped, if you will, in the
Mhm.
mental mind. And that's where this beautiful these thoughts come in. But remember that we built systems around us of education and religion and
Yep.
government and healthcare and technology that from the outside in reflected that inner vibration, right? So little did I know the law of resonance, which I didn't, but I was resonating anguish, which the universe said, well, I don't speak human, I
Right.
speak vibration.
Mhm.
So our family was vibrating anguish. So now we had plenty of energy to explore and navigate our way through. So what happened in the realization? It was 57 years before I hit the wall so hard. I had multiple coping mechanisms. I was dissociative. I hadn't felt my body since I was a little girl. So
Right.
I drank, I had pills, I had purchases, I had pastries, I had everything you can imagine, workaholism. But the thing I felt best about was helping others. It felt like if I was helping other people, even if I was broken, then I was worthy somehow. So it wasn't until the pandemic pause, which is the possibility of aligning to universal source energy,
Mhm.
that as an essential worker, I was told you cannot see the children, you cannot get to the houses, you can't get into the schools. And
Mm.
my mind exploded in terror because I felt like if my eyes weren't on and those children didn't have someone to hold sacred space for them,
Right.
that more terrible things would happen.
Mhm.
So I absolutely had a breakdown, mental, emotional, physical.
Sure.
And when that happened at the end of 2020, I did something I'd never done before, which I went to acupuncture
Okay.
because I was in such pain physically. And when I did that, it opened those meridians and I had a dream. And that dream said to me, was the dream that began the realization or awakening, which was, hey girl, you've been exploring some really important things, but it's time for you to heal all of this, and we are your guides, and we're going to help you navigate that. Now, as a scientist in nursing and in trauma therapy, I thought I was having a psychotic break. I didn't know that I was having an existential awakening. So it took a while for me to navigate my way through what my mind wanted to tell me was happening versus what my spirit wanted to
Mhm.
help me understand. And so the realization has come, and the book was born through the aligning, balancing, connecting of my mind, body, and
Mhm.
spirit to
Mhm.
its natural state. And now the book is born. And what the collective consciousness has asked is, what's going on with my family? See, that's how
Right.
I know consciousness is wondering now what is going on with all this trauma. And so
Mhm.
many families and people don't even know they're traumatized
Yep, that's right.
because
It
it's been
exists.
normalized.
Right, it's
Yeah.
buried. Yeah, I was gonna say it's buried there, and what happens when when it starts at such a young age in your mind, that's just the way the world is. The world is about fight or flight, survival, as you said earlier, and you don't know any differently, and so that's how you show up in the world, and that's how people see you, right? But those who are on the other side that don't aren't familiar with that, where they're looking at you going, "Why does she do this?" or "Why does he behave this fashion?" But at the end, you're only doing what you know. So I get it. I can see that.
Yeah, so we're both genetic and energetic. And
Hmm.
so I think what the thing I would love to, and I do dream, of the world already awakened fully, where adverse childhood experiences are no longer a way of life. I dream this dream into reality every day. And
Hmm.
one of the things that'll be so powerful is to help parents remember that their children and themselves are actually energy, and that they plant certain beliefs and echoes into children. So the most important thing is just to know we're energy. And
Right.
so that
Mm.
information was nowhere in kindergarten. It's nowhere in our religious systems or educational systems or healthcare systems, very few, so we are dancing our way into the marriage of science and spirituality.
Yes.
And I am so thankful to be bridging these ideas so we can study them, explore them, and then the energy of childhood adversity will naturally dance its way out of existence. In other words, it's not something we have to chase or push or
Right.
shove or deny.
Right.
And I think that since we have denied, for instance, trafficking in children is something that's coming up a lot, I notice in the media. And it is because we're ready to really see it and heal it. And I'll go out and say that there are many secrets in our families,
Yes.
and those
Yes.
secrets are ready to be healed.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's those unspoken words that sometimes are the biggest issues because it's taboo. We can't talk about it. And so I think you're absolutely right. I do want to go back and more so just a comment on something I heard you say when you I think you referenced your father, and you didn't say he was a narcissist, that he was exploring narcissism. And I think
Yes.
it's very significant that your choice of wording, like you're not labeling it as such. It's this is what he was learning about, and I think that's important because we often label one another or even label ourselves as opposed to. So I wonder if you can sort of talk about even the significance of using that language. I thought it was powerful.
Yeah, because mine, it's beautiful. It also has its limitations. We love stories. We love to name things. We love to make meaning out of things, right? So, being in the profession of a trauma therapist, the very
Mhm.
first thing we learn how to do is diagnose, right?
Mhm.
And now
Mhm.
somebody has a label, and I know I had several. I have a laundry list of mental health and physical diagnoses, none of which were who I am or who I ever was. And
Right.
so what's interesting is the when we label ourselves as complex PTSD, talking about personal, well, I have a constellation of symptoms that say it goes under this category, but I am not those constellation of symptoms. And I danced with a lot of medication too that kind of dimmed down, dialed down, and dumbed down my natural ability. It was part of my
Mhm.
journey.
Right.
I would like to explore, though, this idea of when we label ourselves or someone else, she is a narcissist. That is
Mm.
a three-dimensional way of describing something. I'd like to describe it in fourth dimension, which is a mental and emotional. So instead of saying, I am a narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
the fourth dimensional way to explain it is, I am experiencing narcissism. I am
Mm.
exploring narcissism.
Mm.
And the fifth dimensional and the divine way of looking at it from this unconditional love is, I am sensing narcissism. So it's I'm exploring, I'm
Yeah.
sensing. So what we notice is this beautiful idea of becoming a compassionate witness to the symptoms and the signs that the mind, body, and spirit are not yet in alignment. So,
Mm.
the dance of the narcissist and empath, which my father and I danced and danced and danced in that energy. And he has learned, and I have learned. And I did have to wrench myself, it was very messy, out of that role as the oldest daughter, because I was I didn't know, but as I realized, I was holding and entangling the empath energy with the narcissist energy, which was keeping him and I entangled. So I wasn't doing either of us any good by staying in the dance. So I chose to dance myself into know thyself. And as
Mm.
I did that, I was able to restore my true nature. And as that vibration within the family, as we're connected genetically and genetically and energetically, what happened was it vibrated into his unconscious and subconscious mind. And
Right.
2 years after I went on the know thyself journey, he and I were able to have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
about the energy from an expanded awareness, not here's what you did to me and here's why
Yeah.
it hurt. We
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
straight out of the third and even fourth dimensional psychological perspective, because that it's the healing across mind, body, and spirit
Yes.
that will
Yes.
bring freedom for our family. So I help transform fear into freedom, and I do it through the language of energy. So I'm very careful with
Mm-hmm.
words, because I want families to be able to speak the words of, my mother's exploring the energy of neglect. Now, I'm going to sit in my mother's energy for a while, because I can't imagine what her perspective of her journey and her life is. Actually, I did that, and I want you to know, I thought I was having a rough time, but my mother had experienced things she never spoke about, and
Gotcha.
her mother had experienced, right? And so when we give expanded space and awareness to the energy,
Yes. Yes.
now I have I have found a way to help my own self, my own marriage, my own traumatized family and
Yeah.
his, and now other families, to navigate it through energy, not keep not this going around and around about, well, he's this and she did that, being stuck
Right.
in a story.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Well, and I was gonna say the stories will kill you because you can never. It's like it's ongoing carousel of just the same story over and over again. But saying that, there is, and it's not to suggest that there's no value in being able to identify, here's what you did, here's what it's done to me. Just in the case of you and your with your stepfather, you're able to move past that. But that doesn't mean that talking about that still there isn't value. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so what I want to clarify there is that staying in that space of, here's what you did and here's how it hurt me or impacted me,
Mm-hmm.
is important as you dance also in the energy of sacred space. So in other words, where I notice I got caught, and where I can get caught in the marriage, or I can get caught in other family dynamics that I have yet to heal yet, is when we get into the reactivity of that particular discussion without holding in balance the sacred witness, right? The sacred space around the discussion. We can actually find ourselves back in the past, reliving that's I'm now I'm 7 speaking to my father, right? Or now I'm 5 trying to speak to my father, right? So what we want to do is stay in the present moment, helping them understand and answering questions about, but here's how that landed for me,
Yep.
while still holding the understanding of energy that he and I are one being, right? We are interconnected. So as I'm having a conversation as a human with my beautiful soul father, can I not get lost in the story? Can I hold both my sacred and human nature within that dynamic? And I waited until I was strong enough to be able to hold both at the same time. Because what I noticed was, when I was just talking about you did this and you did that, the minute we did that, now the defenses go up and our
Absolutely.
hearts
Yeah.
are no longer open. So
Yes.
how do we maintain a receptive mind and an open heart? So it's not as if you don't have the discussion. It's just you're having the discussion in an expanded, loving state of
Yeah.
awareness that
Yeah.
everyone's having their experience and that it's valuable.
And the language, and it goes into language and why that's so important, because using the language that will bring us in that defensive space will only make that task of getting out of it that much harder, as opposed to staying in the lane of love and looking to be, I guess I was going to say, get to a better place, if you will, but get to a more positive space.
Yeah, and I talk, so that's the other thing about language too, I've noticed, oddly, is that, I do my best now, the negative, positive, the
Hmm.
dark and the light. I try to stay away from the polarity, only because it's so rich in meaning for people. So what
Yes.
I talk
Yeah.
about is it's a more expanded, it's just more expanded. I just have
Mm.
more ability to see a little bit differently, a little bit more love filled. So it's an expanded awareness, or it's a contract, like your heartbeat contracts and expands. It reminds me of that. It's an expanded, and then it contracts, and then it
Yes.
expands. And so how do we stay in an expanded awareness and just stay? And the other thing is just staying in our body and feeling what we're feeling. So all I have become aware of so far and discovered so far, because I'm constantly discovering new ways of expanding my awareness. So I really do talk about it in a very different way than most people do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I do think there's power in it. Like, I really, like, as even as you were talking, it clued into me. I'm like, oh wow, that's a really, I guess, different, if you will, because that's
It
not
is
the
different.
norm, right? Because the norm is to actually go where our emotions are, right? And if our emotions aren't in that positive space, that's where we'll go, and that's how we'll speak from, and that's our platform. And getting that common middle ground is that much more difficult. Not that it's impossible. It's just, I think it's a longer road. So again, to hear that you and your stepfather jumped over all that, and the space that you stayed in was of that positive energy. Yeah, I think that's the place to be. So I really appreciate hearing you say that.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing, we want a fast pass. So my father and I actually didn't jump over or go under or try to go around, which is what most family members will do. What
Mhm.
my father and I did, I call it, I love music. So, the song Shadow Dancing,
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
Shadow Dancing, that one. And so I invited my father to dance with me in the shadows.
Mm.
And what that means is to really honor and love all that we are. And this is what humanity is doing. We're dancing with our shadows. So I turned back into the shadows, went into that hero's journey, which we're all on. I went into the cave. I looked at all of the shadows that were really sad and were really just waiting for me to bring light and bring love and sanctuary to them.
Yep.
And so I invited my father into what I had learned and imagined. Now that my imagination's back online, I call it shadow dancing. And so if I'm feeling pain in my body or I'm worried about something, I immediately know, and I start to do my shadow dancing, and I ask which shadow is ready to be healed. So instead of being afraid, which is fear, familiar energy aligned with resistance, what I realized was I was resisting the love that I am, and I couldn't figure out
I'm sorry.
why.
Doctor. I'm sorry, Doctor Kelly.
Yeah,
But I really,
go ahead.
I don't want us to jump over that fear. You said fear, and I was, no, I was powerful. I wanted to go back there.
I sorry, I got excited about my shadow
No,
dancing. So
no, I can
fear,
tell it's very natural fear. Fear energy aligned with resistance. Is that what you said?
Familiar energy aligned with
That's
resistance.
it.
And
That's it.
then I asked, well, why would I resist love? Why would I
Right.
resist healing? Why would I
Right.
resist life itself? And then I realized something that I never realized before, that the very first relationship that was down, down, and dumbed down was my relationship to life itself.
Mm.
In other words, it was like happening to me, and all what was breaking loose every 5 minutes, and it was shovel to the face, and I could
Yes.
not get my bearings. And so my relationship with life itself, once it was restored, when I realized I don't have a family life, my family is life itself. Oh, well, now I have a more expanded space to move around in and to dance in, and then to discover, rediscover actually, and remember and awaken. So for those who are afraid, the other thing I noticed, oddly, I want to share with you. Do you know how
Yeah.
the word scared is like SCARED?
Yes.
Scared.
Yeah.
And if you just turn the letters, it becomes sacred.
Ah.
What?
So
You
let's okay. So let's talk about the significance. Okay, first I want to talk about the significance of sacred. Maybe let's start with, and this is for our audience that we're all clear. What does it mean when you say to be sacred? I guess let's start there.
Yeah, so that was a really good one. So, as someone who was in her mind most of her life, I went and looked at what everybody else said about what it means. That's
Yes.
the first thing I did. I'm like, well, who else is talking about it? And who is like, who is the greatest sage, that ever lived, right? And then I realized, oh, wait, I'm light and I'm love. What does it mean to me? Okay, so what I would say to anyone listening is, what does sacred mean to you is
Mm-hmm.
important. Here's what it means to me:
Mm.
worthy of unconditional love, devotion, and reverence. That's what it means to be sacred. So if I parachuted in and was down at the bottom of the shark tank, feeling completely unworthy of love, then of course it would make sense that I would be afraid when love came knocking at my door. I had no idea what love felt like, or joy, or prosperity in the sense of feeling abundant. My head was down, man. I just wanted to get through life.
Right.
And so when that happens, the unworthiness piece, the shame, the feeling broken and stuff, that's very old energy that we parachuted in to heal. The cycle of that old energy ends right here. And we are powerful beings once we're awake. Now, the world around us wants to keep us distracted and in
Yes.
doubt and in
Yeah.
despair. But I caught on to that game, and now I just play the game every time there is something on the TV or whatever. Like, I don't watch TV anymore, but when somebody's having a moment, spicy words and passionate animation, I'm like, oh, they are in the energy of whatever. And now I can just watch it and go, I'm not here to fix, change, or save anybody. Free
Mhm.
at last.
That's it.
Woo!
Yeah,
So
that's
now
it.
I'm out in the world, man, going, oh, soul blueprint, exploring the energy of fill in the blank.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
now it's nothing but joy.
Yeah, yeah. I just love the idea of even generally just paying attention to the energy, right? Because that can reveal so much to you,
Yes.
and it can enlighten you, it can inform you, it even can empower you, right? So the idea of paying attention to the not only just the energy in the space that we're coming into, but the energy that we're bringing too.
Correct. Because if I am, let's just say, so inspired, and the energy you walk in, well, you can walk in and be infuriated by the energy, right? And so if I'm walking in and I'm seeing families just really tear into each other, right? And I'm starting to feel, mostly just, I get sad. I'm like, oh, this energy is rough,
Right.
whatever. Then what I notice immediately about my own energy is all they are is a reflection of something that may not be healed in my own energy yet. So now they are my teachers and my guides, because we are all in mirrors. We're mirror
Right.
neurons, mirror energy. So if I've got someone honking at me in traffic and flipping me off and all that, now I have a couple of things I can, oh, running the bird energy. Oh, okay. I can go, man, that's making me crazy. And I can go, oh, that's not healed yet. Okay, well, let me get myself into. So either way is good. They're just giving me a gift in that moment. What
Yeah.
is it I'm still healing? So this isn't personal, it's
Yes.
energetic.
Yeah.
Although it feels personal in the human, and the human
Well,
has every right to
and
feel her
yeah.
feelings, and I
Yeah.
do. And I
Yeah.
work on that energy of anger and rage. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is, it's the intersection, it's the integration of human and sacred nature that we came to dance in. And that's what we're all walking into, dancing, surfing into the waves of energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I tell you, Dr. Kelly, every every time I do a conversation such as this, and I walk away, I'm wondering, the theme or feeling or what I'm left with, and dancing, it's going to be it for me. So dancing is going to be what I'm going to be left with for sure. Absolutely. And you touched on something I think is important because it's hard for us as humans to not react to the energy that's being generated or sent our way. So, i.e., being flipped the bird while we're driving. And I think, I think that sort of that, and it's something that we're always. And I myself am always looking at how I react or respond to what I receive energy wise, and I think it's an ongoing process as humans.
It is.
And quite frankly, I don't know if you ever arrive. I think it's an ongoing, exercise, if you will. Um, but as you do it more, um, you get better at it. But you also start to see the world different. Like your perception of the world also is different too, isn't it?
It's a huge difference for me. And so, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And so, this idea of the holodeck has always fascinated me ever since I was a little girl.
Right.
When I needed comfort, I would sneak out of the house and I'd lay on the ground and I'd look to the stars. And I remember just feeling so comfortable in the stars. And I write in the book, as part of what families can do to begin this journey from fear to freedom, is to look to the stars, which is
Mm.
stillness, thankfulness, affirmations, reflections, and showing up. And so one of the things that we're learning to do is we've got to slow the momentum of our lives. We've got to be able to notice what we're thinking. Children are moving at warp speed. Actually, children are being born now in the last 15 or 20 years are highly conscious, innately aware of who they are really helping our families heal from the inside out. So now we're turning right side up, inside out, right?
Yep.
So the framework. But the holodeck is something I chuckle about a lot because we do create our reality with our thoughts and our vibration. And so every day, right as I'm waking up and before I go to sleep, I say, I wonder where love will take me today.
Mm.
And then I just watch the holodeck and I wonder who are the people, places, things, situations, circumstances, or conditions that are going to mirror to me my inner world. And so what I noticed over the last 4 years is as I became devoted to self-love,
Hmm.
and that took a minute because I call that self-honoring, not selfish. So that
Mm.
took a minute for me to understand. But I notice now as I walk out the door, I am no longer life in the fast lane. I'm life in the flow lane. And
Mm.
now my days are filled with a mirror of heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that sounds. I do love the way that sounds. Dr. Kelly, this has been great. And before we go, I certainly want to give you an opportunity to tell us about your book. I know you sort of touched on it a little bit, but in terms of getting a little bit deeper, I think we've sort of in our conversation we've been touching on a lot of themes from your book, and it's called "What's Going On with My Family: A Roadmap for Healing Trauma and Unlocking Your Hidden Power."
Yes, and remembering what is sacred,
Oh
which
yes,
is you
yes.
and everyone and everything. And so it is, the hidden power is actually our resilience, our wisdom, and our genius. And what
Hmm.
happens to our children's genius is it gets underwater, snorkels are underwater. And as we recall and remember our genius that is unique to us, imagine an entire family's generations of awakened family members' genius coming online together, creating something in the world that's never been born before. So I get excited not just about our individual genius that we remember and awaken, but the family's collective genius that ripples into humanity, because humanity, my love, is waking up, and we're getting to see what we need to heal. And all of those energies that are no longer supporting us in unity, harmony, and unconditional love will just dissipate out of our lives. And so, what I would say to every family, if they're interested in the book, is that the premise is within every traumatized family, there lies a hidden power, a sacred potential waiting to be remembered and awakened. And so I just want to walk, dance, surf alongside families wherever they are, and watch their eyes light up, their hearts open again. And when they remember, oh, I parachuted in here because we're getting humanity grooved out. Woo! It's a great feeling, man. It is a great feeling.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Kelly, this has been so awesome. I've appreciated the conversation and the enlightenment and the dancing too. We got some dancing in, so I appreciate all of that. For our listeners, that they wanted to connect with you, learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Just go to onesacredfamily.com. Facebook, Instagram links are at the bottom of that, and links to the book are on that. And I did read the book as well for those who just like to listen.
There we go. There we go. Well, Dr. Kelly, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the insights. Appreciate the sharing, and all the best.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much appreciation to Dr. Kelly for being here. And in conclusion, her guidance and personal anecdotes illuminate the path to healing from trauma, advocating for embracing our inner power, transmuting fear into love, and fostering a harmonious balance between our human experiences and our sacred essence. By embracing our authentic selves, a little bit of dancing as well, we can embark on a transformative journey of healing and empowerment. To connect with Kelly directly and explore her transformative healing services, please refer to the contact details in the show notes below. I'd encourage you to take that initial step towards healing and rediscovering your inherent potential today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you found value in today's episode with Dr. Kelly and it resonated with you and her insights left something for you to think about, we encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, share this podcast if you haven't already done so. And that helps us to further spread the message of empowerment and living audaciously. Of course, your support plays a vital role to the growth of the podcast and enables us to reach even more listeners on their journey towards living their best audacious lives. Thank you for being a valued member of our audacious community. And until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be